Hey everyone, this is Mike with Play More Games, and we are doing an unboxing today for the newest Compass Games release, Test of Faith, the most recent release in the operational scale system. If you've seen, I've posted a couple of videos of the previous title, the Doomsday Project Volume 1, Battle for Germany. And did an unboxing for that one and a couple of playthrough videos. Short announcement about that. I lost my V-save for the one scenario I was playing, so I'm going to end up skipping that one and going on to either Northag or Centag, and I'll probably get to that sometime in the next week or so. So this is Test of Faith, which covers the Arab-Israeli War of 1973. I don't know a ton about this conflict, which is a good thing from the perspective that I like to play games that kind of teach me something, maybe something I didn't know, and I definitely like games that show me something new. And the OSS system is definitely a lot different than other systems I've seen before. So here comes my assistant, and I am filming on the floor here because my table is currently occupied by another Compass Games release, Barbarians at the Gates, which I hope to have some content for published shortly. You can see her white socks there. Jenny is very cute. So this is the fourth title in the OSS series. Previous one being Battle for Germany, and the two before that, Korea and Vietnam. I know Adam Starkweather, the game designer, has a World War II Italy design. I know the Doomsday Project has a Balkans. I know there's an Arctic front. I also read a South American front, and then he mentioned a game covering the strategic nuclear war, which sounds interesting, if I understand correctly. So between OSS and CSS, which, I mean, if we go back to CSS, currently I know there's at least, I know he was talking about doing a linking game, linking the Saipan, Guam, and Tinian. I know he was talking about a game covering the carrier battle. Obviously, the latest CSS release was Fulda Gap. I know there's a Enemy at the Gates scenario for Berlin. There's the Nemesis series, which only has one title released. There's I think the Western Front scenarios are called the Liberation series. So there's, I mean, this guy has quite a few games in the pipeline. And if you follow the channel, I've done a ton of videos for CSS. I really do enjoy the series, and I've begun to enjoy the time that I've spent with OSS. Alright, so I've spoken for 4 minutes and I haven't even shown the back yet, so let's get this flipped over and we'll take a look here. Okay, and we're getting some nice glare there, so let's see. Alright, we'll just kind of take a look as is really quickly. So the Sinai front is 2 map sections that cover a 34 by 43 area, and then the Golan front has a 22 by 34 area. That's your typical standard map size. And we just have a quick look at the artwork, which looks very nice, and the counters. So I'm going to tear the shrink off and we'll take a look and see what's inside. Alright. Hopefully you can get a nice whiff of that freshly made board game. So top is an errata sheet, and let's take a look. Most of these are just spelling corrections, and oh, hey now, those are for me. The errata sheet mostly looks like spelling corrections, and clarifications. So this looks pretty minor. I've gotten used to seeing these sheets, just stuff that doesn't get caught in proofing that appears in. The Compass is really good about making sure that that stuff is in there. All right. So if I can manage, hey now. I'm not ready to play the game. Okay. So I'm going to go in from the side then. Okay. So let's take a look at the counters. So this looks like Israeli forces, and you can see these look like commanders, and then you have formations, and they have these nice colored bands. And basically, if it works similar to the way the games worked in the other series, basically you are going to have these units traced to an HQ, so this 421A here, and sometimes they're in a cadre which might trace before that, and then there's usually a higher level HQ that this HQ will trace to, and I'm trying to find it on the counter sheet and I don't see it. But here's a really important part of OSS, and which makes it really different, is the combat system is unique. It's not quite like anything else that I've played. Basically, you have different units that have different equipment attached to it. Each equipment gives a different support value. Now, each unit, when you simulate a combat, may add its equipment on a certain roll. So some forms of equipment are easier to attach, some, depending on the terrain, get better modifiers. So basically you get the idea. Any disparities between the Israeli and Arab forces will show up in their equipment ratings. And on the back, I don't want to rip this sheet out yet, because if you've gotten a title from Compass Games recently, you know that these are just, I call them fall off the bone ribs. They will just start popping right out, and you can even kind of see that they're ready to come out. So on the back we can kind of see some status markers, equipment markers, which again gives modifiers for your combats, and your chip markers, which is important. Basically, there are 4 different kinds of chip markers, and depending on how many movement points you spend and what mode you're in, you can do one or the other. So this is the Sinai map, and I don't want to go so far as to fold out all the maps. I don't really have the space. Let's take a quick look. Oh, this one actually has a bit more color, so let's go with this one. Okay. So here's what I'll point out. You have these roads, and these roads you can, if it's anything similar to Doomsday Project, you'll end up tracing along these roads lines of communications back from your units to your HQs. And that becomes important because, especially for the Doomsday Project, there's a lot of terrain, especially in the north, like canals, that if you jump over you start paying higher costs for. I'm not sure what these light shading areas are. It'll be interesting to find out. This looks like grassland. I'm not sure. So there's the med. Over here we have our third map section. This is the one with the title of the game, Test of Faith. And on the reverse of that is Damascus. So these are neat. These are nice little plastic bags that you get. Okay, so here's a terrain table. So basically, and the way that this works is each terrain has a defensive value. You get the defensive value if you're deployed in that terrain. Otherwise, it counts as clear terrain, or in this case, probably sand, which has no modifier. And then basically, you have, each unit has a primary equipment. Well, I don't want to say that because some units have no equipment at all. But if you have primary equipment and it's a tank, you would look at this chart here. If you have secondary APCs, you would look at here. If your primaries were APCs, you would look here. Or if your secondaries were tanks, you'd look here. And if your secondaries are APCs, you would look here. Now, you have to kind of look at this and understand that, okay, let's say we're on the Rocky map, and our primary is tank and our secondary is APC. Well, if we look, they both work out to be the same. This is the primary tank and this is the secondary APC. But let's say the reverse is true and you had primary APC and secondary tank. Well, then your primary APC is a much better choice for fighting in Rocky combat, which makes sense, right? It's definitely easier for the APCs to maneuver around as opposed to the tanks. And that's called restricted terrain table. And then there's an unrestricted terrain table on the back, which I'm guessing, well, I don't want to guess. So we have a player aid, and this is where you track your support levels, including the equipment, which we talked about, tanks, APCs, SAMs, helicopters. You have your commander boxes here. You have replacements, destroyed units that you can rebuild, special boxes for task forces, garrisons, amphibious forces, replacements, supply, and infrastructure. And there's a whole strategic phase where you'll spend supply to refresh your units and get more supply. We have a general game display, including victory points. And there's a lot of stuff here. But for now, just suffice it to know that that exists. Oh, this is pretty cool. So this is an air display, and you have your missions chart and your aircraft capability charts. So we should also have one for the Arab side as well. We have a very similar player aid for the Arab nations. I have a very similar air chart as well. And then we come to the scenario booklet, which has a complete player aid on the back. So this is a 52-page player aid booklet. Beautiful pictures of the maps there. Beautiful color illustrations of the. This is an example of play. And you have a, let's see. Yeah, you have like a 10-page example of play here, which is pretty cool. So let's take a look from the beginning here. We have 8 different scenarios, which is really cool. So let's see. We have a small scenario on the Northern Sinai map, and you can kind of see you have your setup instructions, victory conditions. You have a full map scenario for the Golan front. You have a larger scenario for the Sinai front. There's quite a few. I guess the big question that I think everyone wants to know is if you can do like a combined game And the answer is yes, you can. That's scenario 8, the Yom Kippur War, which combines both fronts into one game. So definitely going to want some table space for that one. Okay. Last up, we have our rule book here, which clocks in at a relatively breezy 48 pages. But most of this is, again, color examples, huge, nice large font, color examples at play. I was skimming this on the Compass Games website because you can, or maybe it was the Kickstarter, or maybe it was the Board Game Geek page, but the rules are out there, so you can kind of skim the rules and kind of get an idea of what you're getting into. And it did look very similar to the Doomsday Project. So if you have that one, this one should be easy enough to try and get into. So for right now, I'm going to box this one back up, and we have our maps here and our counters with our baggies, our errata sheet, and our dice. So, in my belief, and this is just what I believe, Compass Games has been on a tear with some really good releases. This looks to be no exception. The components are well done. It looks like a very interesting game that I am going to work into as soon as I am finished with the Doomsday Project. So look out for the next Doomsday Project video coming soon, hopefully within the next week, and we'll do some content for this game soon. Anyway, this is Mike with Play More Games, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you around. Bye.